There is a level of self-respect so powerful that people treat you differently the moment you enter a room. They pause before speaking to you. They think twice before crossing a boundary. They sense something in you, an inner firmness, a silent strength, an unshakable dignity. And today you're going to discover exactly how to reach that level. Think for a moment about those rare individuals who seem immune to disrespect. They don't raise their voice. They don't argue. They don't beg for understanding. They simply exist with a calm, steady presence that commands honor without demanding it. While others are disrespected, dismissed, ignored, or walked over, these people glide through life untouched. And do you know what most people whisper about them? That's not normal. But what if I told you that this level of self-respect isn't a personality trait? It isn't confidence. It isn't luck. It isn't even maturity. It comes from an ancient psychological framework developed centuries ago in East Asia. 7 layers of personal dignity known as shinzai. Once you understand these levels, you will stop tolerating disrespect without ever needing to fight for respect. But there's a catch. To climb these 7 levels, you must let a part of yourself die. The part that apologizes for existing, the part that fears conflict, the part that stays silent to avoid discomfort, the part that betrays itself just to keep the peace. That version of you cannot survive the journey ahead. Before we explore these 7 levels, take a moment and ask yourself one question. Which level do you believe you're currently living in? If you're ready to rise like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments what level you think you're at. Your engagement tells me you're serious about transforming your life. Now let's begin. Level 1, the level of self-awareness. The first level of self-respect begins with a painful awakening. The realization that most of your suffering comes from your own silence, your own fear, and your own willingness to tolerate what hurts you. This is the level where you finally open your eyes to the truth. You have been abandoning yourself without even noticing it. For years, perhaps even decades, you convinced yourself that letting things slide was the mature thing to do. You told yourself that speaking up would create conflict, that setting boundaries would upset people, that saying no would make you look rude or selfish. But deep down, a quiet voice kept whispering that something was wrong. At level 1, that whisper becomes a roar. You begin noticing how often you agree when you don't want to, how often you apologize when you did nothing wrong, how often you shrink yourself to keep others comfortable. You start recognizing patterns. The friend who always interrupts, the coworker who dumps work on you, the partner who dismisses your feelings, the family member who uses guilt like a weapon. For the first time, you admit to yourself that this is not kindness. This is self-betrayal. Level 1 is uncomfortable because awareness strips away all illusions. You can no longer pretend you don't notice the disrespect. You can no longer justify behavior that hurts you. You can no longer numb the feeling that you deserve better. This level isn't about taking action yet. It's about seeing clearly. And clarity hurts before it heals. But awareness is the foundation of self-respect. You cannot fix what you refuse to acknowledge. You cannot rise while protecting the things that keep you small. Level 1 is the beginning of a war, not with the world, but with the old version of yourself who settled too easily. This is where your transformation truly begins. Level 2, the level of non-negotiable boundaries. Level 2 of self-respect begins the moment you decide that your dignity is not up for negotiation. This is where awareness turns into action, and action begins with boundaries. Most people think boundaries are about controlling others. They are not. Boundaries are simply the way you teach the world how to treat you. At this level, you stop asking yourself, should I say something? And start telling yourself, I must say something. You begin to recognize that every time you stay silent after being disrespected, you are silently participating in your own mistreatment. You stop pretending that tolerance is kindness. You stop mistaking avoidance for peace. And you stop giving people unlimited access to your energy, your time, and your emotions. Level 2 requires a difficult shift. You must accept that not everyone will like your boundaries. Some people will resist them, some will mock them, some will test them, some will even get angry because they were benefiting from your lack of self-respect. At this stage, every boundary you set feels heavy, awkward, and uncomfortable. Your voice may shake, your chest may tighten, your heart may beat faster, but you speak anyway, because silence is no longer an option. You start small. I'm not comfortable with that, Please don't speak to me that way. I'm not available right now. Or simply, no. Each sentence is a brick in the foundation of your new identity. You are not trying to be rude. You are trying to stop abandoning yourself. Boundaries turn self-awareness into self-protection. You no longer accept disrespect disguised as humor, love, or tradition. You no longer bend to avoid temporary discomfort. Level 2 is where people first notice something different about you. You are no longer easy to manipulate. You have begun choosing yourself. Level 3, the level of consistent self-protection. Level 3 is where your self-respect stops being something you practice occasionally and becomes something you protect consistently. Most people set boundaries once or twice, feel proud for a moment, and then collapse the next time they're pressured, guilt-tripped, or emotionally overwhelmed. But at level 3, you begin to understand something essential. A boundary is meaningless unless it is protected every single time it is crossed. This is where the real work begins, because your old identity will try to pull you back. You'll feel tempted to let things slide just once. You'll tell yourself it's not worth the argument, not worth the tension, not worth the discomfort. But you've already learned that just once becomes a habit, and habits shape identity. So you start responding every time, not with anger, not with aggression, but with calm, steady consistency. When someone interrupts you, you say, "Let me finish." When someone dismisses your feelings, you reply, "I'm serious, please listen." When someone pressures you, you say, "My answer is still no." When someone oversteps, you calmly restate your boundary. And here's what begins to happen. People realize the old version of you is gone. You are no longer the person who swallowed disrespect to avoid conflict. You are no longer the person who said yes out of fear. You are no longer the person who allowed people to rewrite your worth. Consistency creates clarity, and clarity creates respect. At level 3, you also begin protecting yourself emotionally. You stop explaining yourself excessively. You stop justifying your decisions. You stop defending your worth to people who refuse to see it. You begin speaking less and choosing more. This level often brings friction, but friction is proof of growth. The world senses that you have changed. You are no longer controlled by guilt, people-pleasing, or the desire to be liked. You have entered the realm of consistent self-protection, where your dignity is no longer optional. Level 4, the level of emotional independence. Level 4 is where your self-respect breaks free from the opinions, reactions, and validation of other people. This is the level that most individuals never reach because it requires you to detach your emotional stability from how others treat you. At this stage, you realize that disrespect hurts most when you need something from the person who disrespects you: approval, attention, affection, or acceptance. Emotional dependence is the root of every boundary collapse, every forced yes, every silent tolerance of disrespect. But level 4 shifts everything. Here you understand a deeper truth. Self-respect cannot exist in a mind that relies on others to feel worthy. So you begin reclaiming every piece of yourself you once outsourced. You stop waiting for apologies to heal. You stop needing closure to move on. You stop craving validation to feel confident. You stop depending on reassurance to feel secure. Instead, you build internal stability. You learn to sit with discomfort instead of running toward people who caused it. You learn to soothe yourself instead of begging others to do it. You learn to validate your own emotions instead of seeking permission to feel them. Emotional independence does not mean isolation. It means sovereignty. You remain open to love, connection, and support, but you never again allow someone to become the source of your self-worth. And strangely, when you no longer need people, you attract better people. Emotionally healthy people respect emotional independence. Toxic people fear it. That's why at level 4, some relationships dissolve. You may outgrow friendships where your weakness was convenient. You may disappoint people who relied on your lack of confidence. You may confuse those who interpreted your dependence as loyalty. But this level forces a powerful realization. It is not your job to shrink so others feel big. At level 4, you finally step into your own emotional power. And once you do, there is no going back. Level 5, the level of silent standards. Level 5 is where self-respect becomes so deeply rooted that you no longer need to announce your boundaries, argue for them, or explain them. Your standards speak for you. This is the level where your actions, not your words, communicate who you are. You don't demand better treatment. You simply walk away from places, people, and situations that cannot meet your standards. At level 5, you realize that self-respect isn't just about saying no to disrespect. It's about saying no to anything that does not align with your values, peace, or dignity. You stop entertaining conversations that drain you. You stop giving chances to people who repeatedly show you who they are. You stop negotiating your worth. And most importantly, you stop lowering your standards just to keep someone in your life. Silent standards are powerful because they remove emotional noise. There's no drama, no fighting, no pleading. You simply make choices that reflect your worth. You choose peace over chaos. You choose effort over excuses. You choose authenticity over approval. And you choose self-respect over temporary comfort. People begin to notice. They feel the shift. They sense the distance. They recognize the stability. You no longer chase, persuade, or prove. You no longer tolerate half effort, half love, or half presence. You no longer explain why certain behaviors are unacceptable. Your decisions already reveal the answer. This level creates natural separation. Those who genuinely value you rise higher to meet your standards. Those who only valued your weakness fade away. Silent standards expose the truth. Some relationships were only working because you accepted less than you deserved. When you raise your standards, you raise the quality of your entire life. And here, something profound happens. You don't just respect yourself, you start attracting people who reflect that respect back to you. Level 5 marks the beginning of a new chapter, one where your presence demands the respect your words once begged for. Level 6, the level of identity alignment. Level 6 is where self-respect stops being something you practice and becomes something you are. At this level, every choice you make, your habits, your routines, your relationships, your conversations, begins aligning with the person you want to become, not the person you used to be. This is the point where your inner world and outer world finally match. You no longer say you deserve better while accepting less. You no longer talk about your goals while living in ways that destroy them. You no longer identify as someone who is improving. You identify as someone who has already changed. Identity alignment means your behavior naturally follows your values. You don't force discipline, you live discipline. You don't try to be confident, you act with confidence. You don't fight for respect. Your presence makes disrespect impossible. At level 6, you begin choosing environments that protect your growth instead of threaten it. You surround yourself with people who elevate you, not drain you. You eliminate habits that once numbed your pain. You avoid conversations that pull you back into the past. You move differently, calmer, slower, more intentional. Your decisions become sharper. Your awareness becomes stronger. Your tolerance becomes smaller. And your sense of self becomes unshakable. People around you start to feel the difference. They notice that you no longer react to provocation. You no longer defend yourself against pettiness. You no longer break your own standards to maintain a connection. The old version of you, the one desperate for approval, begins to feel like a distant memory. Identity alignment is powerful because it creates momentum. The more you act like the person you want to be, the more your brain rewires itself to support that identity. This is where self-respect becomes effortless. It stops being a battle. It becomes your natural state. And once you reach this level, falling back becomes nearly impossible. Level 7, the level of self-respect that transforms others. Level 7 is the final and rarest stage of self-respect. The level where your presence doesn't just change how you live, it changes how others behave around you. At this level, you don't enforce boundaries. People instinctively avoid crossing them. You don't demand respect. People feel compelled to give it. You don't explain your worth. Your energy communicates it before you speak. This is the level where your internal transformation becomes external influence. You radiate a quiet authority that cannot be faked, borrowed, or taught. It is earned through every moment of self-awareness, every boundary protected, every difficult conversation, every silent standard, and every identity shift you've already made. Here, something profound happens. You begin inspiring change without trying. Friends start adjusting their tone when speaking to you. Co-workers become more mindful in your presence. Family members treat you with a new kind of caution, mixed with admiration. Even strangers respond differently, sensing a level of maturity and grounded strength that is impossible to ignore. This level also brings an unexpected shift. You lose interest in proving anything, correcting anyone, or seeking validation. You speak less, listen more, and choose your words with precision. You no longer chase closure, fight for attention, or explain your value. You move with the calm certainty of someone who knows who they are. But the real transformation is internal. You no longer abandon yourself for anyone. You no longer shrink to fit in. You no longer negotiate your dignity. Your self-respect becomes a permanent part of your identity, unshakable, unbroken, unbothered. And this is why level 7 feels almost spiritual. It is the rebirth of someone who used to fear conflict, rejection, and judgment, now standing as someone others quietly look up to. When people say, "You've changed," the truth is simple. You didn't change. You finally returned to who you were always meant to be.